What if time is not real? And what if time is actually going backwards? What if time is going backwards and instead of going forward, it's actually going in the opposite direction? Or what if the time is actually just stagnant? Just like a movie or DVD. You don't think of movies as those moving objects. You think of them as static. You think of them as stagnant. And what if this is how reality actually is? What if time is actually an illusion, and the only thing that keeps this illusion from turning into disillusion is actually just our memory? Because when you really think about it, our memory is actually the reason why we believe time exists. Because if there wouldn't be any memory, then you wouldn't know what happened to you just 5 seconds ago. You wouldn't even know that you existed 5 seconds ago. There wouldn't be any continuity of consciousness or an illusion of continuity of consciousness if you believe that 1 second ago you didn't exist, or if you didn't have a belief that you existed 1 minute ago. There simply wouldn't be any sense of time. Now, of course, we do have this feeling, we do have this emotion, this passage, this flow of movement. It feels like things are moving, like things are flowing forward. And of course, that may be an illusion because, how do we know? There are many theories that suggest that time is actually just, static, such as Einstein's, special relativity theory, physics, that type of stuff. And really this idea, it's kind of paradoxical, because if you really think about it, if reality is just infinite, if we have like infinite realities, and in some creatures, if they're really immortal, then how can they be, just this static 3-dimensional or 4-dimensional object? Because if they're really infinite, if they're immortal, then their static sort of existence is also infinite, Because, if time wouldn't exist in that scenario, it would reach a state of contradiction, because you cannot be, or what if you can be, in infinite states at the same time? What if you can be, at infinite location points, infinite states, being in infinite states or in a superposition at the same time? What if that's not a contradiction at all? What if that's completely possible, to exist a state of infinite superposition of being, of becoming everyone at the same time, or all stationary objects, points, locations at the same time? This idea breaks my brain. It breaks my brain into pieces, into jello, because it really destroys this whole limit of, I can only be finite. I can be this finite being, and only finite right now. I cannot be infinite. I cannot have infinite superpowers. I cannot exist, as infinite things at the same time. But what if that's exactly what is the case? Because, Einstein has proved that time is just an illusion. But of course, if we assume that certain, conscious entities are immortal, in some cases they don't die, they don't fade away, then the line is infinite. There's no stopping. The line segment, of their being is infinite. It never stops. It never. There's no ending. And so really, this makes the whole object infinite. The whole object, the whole 3-dimensional object or 4-dimensional object becomes infinitely large. Its surface area, right, or its length, or its width, or its height, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to name it, it becomes infinite. And you might ask, but what about people who are not immortal, or mortal species? Then now, yes, these are obviously finite, but the immortal ones are really the ones which blew my mind. How can someone be immortal yet timeless, infinite yet finite, or infinite yet stationary? Stationary and being infinite yet being stagnant, and being into being timeless, right? It's very contradictory. Yet it's not. It may be a completely valid experience, a completely valid existence.